Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Welcome, my friends, once again to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. This scratchy old voice today belongs to me. And my name is Steve Fielder, as most of you know. And I'm on today with one of my good buddies who just happened to fall into my trap today. I got a little behind in getting a podcast produced for you folks today or this week, and lo and behold, my buddy from the great state of Pennsylvania, Mr. Fred Moran, the Redbone Man, gave me a call, which and left a voicemail, and I said, aha, I've got my guest for this week. So, Fred, how in the world are you?
Well, not doing too great. I have a little bit of health problems here and so forth, but I ain't hunting no 5-6 nights a week like I usually do, but I'm still going 2 or 3. And I only got one dog right now, a female. I've had her a little over 2 years, and she suits me fine. She got a good mouth. She's a heck of a tree dog, and I haven't been to any night hunts because, to be truthful, I don't think that I could keep up like I used to. I used to lead where others followed. It don't happen anymore at 88. So
you're just 88 now. Come on, Fred.
Yeah, I'm just a kid. Just a kid.
Yeah. Well, you asked. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I want to hear you.
I hunted with a guy this past deer season. His nephew brought him down here, and he was 90 or 91, and I thought he was in pretty good shape. And I took him to some of the best places I know of for deer hunting. And I'm not bragging. I don't feel anybody can beat me for deer hunting. Maybe Gary Hoffman. He's an old coon hunter. He couldn't stand to be beat at anything. And if you killed a 10-point, he'll kill a 12-point. But I showed that man that day 202 deer. And I forget how many were bucked that day. I think around 38, something like that. He went home telling everybody, couldn't believe it, how many deer I showed him and so forth. But we got a lot of deer, and they're here. And I feel after they close the season, they can reopen it and not hurt it a bit because there's that many deer. And
why do you think people are still so crazy about them? You know, they're like fleas in some areas.
Everybody wants to kill that trophy deer. Everybody. Mm-hmm. And no matter how good one. Hey, as many deer as we have, why do I still go to other states deer hunting? I like to see what state's better than one I got and so forth. I've probably deer hunted, I'm guessing, at least 15 to 20 different states. Yeah. And there's some that I choose over others and so forth, and some I'd never probably go back to. But I've done pretty well, and I got a grandson. He's only 11. He's going to beat my records for age and the amount of deer he's got, and he's pretty good. And I've never killed one with a bow, but he has. He got a nice buck here in Pennsylvania, got one in Indiana. He's pretty good for 11 years old. So.
I'd say he is. Well, he's got a great teacher, a great mentor. my dad said when the Indian got a gun, he threw his bow away. That's what my dad believed. But anyway, you do gun hunt as well, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
You hunt with the gun. What caliber do you prefer for deer?
There's only one caliber, 270.
270. That's the one.
Now, don't get me wrong. I've killed deer with over 20 different calibers. I got a bunch of guns. I got guns I never even shot in 5-6 years. I used to badmouth a 243, but I got one that I really like, and I've done quite well with it. And that probably would be my second choice. But there's others. There's a lot of good ones, and like I say, they say that a 30-30's killed more deer than any other caliber there is. I don't believe that's still true today, but it's a possibility. There's enough of them out there, that's for sure.
Well, a friend of mine posted on social media this week. He's a bear hunter in Tennessee. He's written a book about us, not us particular, but it's called The Old Men, and he's having good success with it. That's Tracy Jones, T.L. Jones, down at Greenville, Tennessee. But he posted
where at in Tennessee?
Greenville. It's there between Johnson City and Knoxville, going down Interstate 81. Yeah, he posed a question on Facebook, which, if you could choose 4 calibers for bear hunting, what would those be? And of course, I had my thoughts. I said a 30-06. That's what my dad, my brother, and I always hunted with. We used a 220 grain core-locked Remington bullet. And of course, we're mainly shooting bears out of trees, but some of those are killed on the ground, while the dogs are baying them and so forth. My dad, even in his later years, killed one that was running around the hillside parallel with the trail that he was on, and 2 of our dogs were right on its tail end, and he shot that bear while it was in full flight, and killed it. But anyway, I said 30-06. I also said a 30-30 because they've been used so much. I also said a 35 Winchester, the WM or the WSM. They have that short 35 Magnum, I guess it is. I don't know if they call that a Magnum or whatever. But
good brush gun.
Yeah. And then, from my experience hunting out west and seeing the stopping power on some big bear, I said a 45-70. 45-70 is a lot like a 308 and can be compared, I guess, to the 308. But anyway, that was kind of interesting, and people had all different kinds of opinions. But my dad always said, from a bear hunting standpoint, that he'd seen a lot of bears shot with a 243 that when they hit the ground, they jumped right back up and you had a problem. That it just didn't pack enough wallop, I guess, for bear hunting. But deer hunting's a whole different game, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And like you say, we have a lot of deer, and I've hunted other states. As many deer as I've killed, I only have one mounted in my life, and the only reason I got it mounted, I shot it in Tennessee. I've killed a lot of deer better than it, but I was hunting when he's dead now, Howard Ford from down in
he's from on Harpeth River Joe, the blue tick hound, Howard Ford. He was from right outside between Nashville and Murfreesboro there on the Harpeth River. Great guy. Great guy.
He was a character.
Oh, man.
The laziest white man I ever met.
Oh, watch it now. I may have to edit that.
Well, I'll tell you what. I used to call Paul Kettle because that's who he reminded me of. He wouldn't do nothing. Sit on the porch all day, and that's
In
about
those
it.
bib overalls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he was a character. But
Howard Ford.
I killed a nice deer with him. He said, "You get that mounted?" I said, "No." I said, "I've killed better deer." He said, "If you don't get that deer mounted, don't come back here ever again." So I found a kid that was taking up taxidermy, and he gave me a heck of a good price on doing one. So that's why, the main reason why I got it mounted. In fact, I'm looking at it right now where I'm sitting at, and it was. I saw a lot of deer. Tennessee didn't have that many deer when I first started hunting down there, but it got more and more. It's a good state. Some decent racks down there, at least where we hunted at. And I've hunted probably 4 or 5 different spots. I've hunted not far from Loretta Lynn's farm. I think the first time we went down there. And,
well, you're talking in an area that I'm familiar with because that's just west of where my dad was raised, along I-40 there. And you're right about the deer changing. When I was a kid, going to my
They used to put it in the newspaper when they saw a deer.
Yeah, there were no deer on the family farm there, and nobody ever saw a deer and all. And of course, now they're everywhere down there. I used to. The way I first started going crazy going to Tennessee, when I was a kid, all us guys from school, high school, and that, we lived to the store right up the street from where I lived. And it was actually a candy store and milkshakes and stuff like that. But the guy that owned it, it was a front for him. He wrote numbers. But when he was in the service, he met For those of you out there that may not be educated to the ways of Pennsylvania and the northern cities and so forth, the numbers game used to be quite popular.
Well, anyhow, he knew I was hunting crazy, and he just liked me. I looked in his store, and he just liked me. He says, "I got a farm in Tennessee." He says, "Someday I'm going to take you down there." And I was about 14, I think, the first time I went down there. And he cleared her with my pap and so forth. Okay, take the kid down there for a week. And he met a girl down there. He didn't marry her, but he brought her back to Pennsylvania, and they lived together, for 40 years that I know of. Anyhow, but he'd go down the farm, and her parents didn't have much money. This was in Smith County, Tennessee. The town was New Middleton, Tennessee. And anyhow, he took me down there, and I met every coon hunter around. I wasn't old enough to drive him, but he'd take me every day. If I told him where a different coon hunter lived, he'd take me over there. He didn't care a bit about hunting. All he did was sit on the porch for about 10 days.
They're big porch sitters in Tennessee. That's where I got my love for it.
But I got to meet so many coon hunters. One of them I still remember. His name was Scobie Baker. Somehow he found out that there was somebody up the hall living in a house temporarily or vacationing, and that he was coon hunting crazy. And one day when I was going down the road with this guy, his name was Louis, that took me down there. He stopped Louis and he says, "I want to talk to the boy there." I understand you're a coon hunter. I says, "Yep." he says, I got a nice red dog. He says, if you want, pick him up anytime you want. He's tied under the porch, and you can take him hunting. That guy didn't know me from Adam, but I sure took him up on the dog was a good dog. His dog's name was Radio.
Radio. Dial him in, Radio. Yeah.
And I still have a picture of him sitting underneath a crosscut saw hanging up on the wall down there. And I took the dog hunting. If I could afford it. I couldn't afford nothing like that. He wanted, which was a high price, I thought, for back when I was 14 years old. He wanted $300 for the dog. Mm-hmm. And usually you could get a dog back then for $100 and a half. It was pretty good. But I couldn't afford it. But I met another guy, a guy that I bought probably over 100 dogs off of. His name was Cass Haney. He's from Hartsville, Tennessee. He ran a livestock auction, and he used to buy dogs because all the people knew him. And what he told you, you didn't have to try it. It'd be exactly what he said. The man was 100% honest, and I got some good dogs from him. But getting back to old Radio, at that time, even at 14, I was corresponding with Vinny Orlando up in Connecticut. Yeah. And I wrote him a letter and told him of a good red dog I hunted with down there. Well, Vinny is the one that told me about Cass Haney. And he got the dog. I think he bought it for $200 or something like that. It was close to that. And so Carl Calkins, another coon hunter up in Connecticut, was a red dog crazy, and he bought the dog off of Betty, and he kept it till it died. It was. I hunted the dog at least 6-7 nights while I was down there.
Okay, let's pause just a minute here, and I want my listeners to think about this. Now, this is the days before any internet. This is the days, when communication consisted either of a long-distance phone call or a postcard or something like that. Here we've got a dog in Tennessee discovered by a guy in Pennsylvania, sold to a guy in Connecticut. Now, that was the Coonhound grapevine back in those days. There was a tremendous amount of communication that went on in the coonhound sport, even with the most fundamental means. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep, definitely. Yep. I did a lot of letter writing. I met a lot of coonhounders. But being down there in New Middleton, I met a lot of guys. And I hunted with different guys practically every night I was down there. And one of them, I know he passed now, but his name was Glenn Green, and he had a black and tan. He was good. And him and I hunted one night. That was probably, I was about 17 then. I took the best dog I had at the time down there, and we hunted, and we saw, which was unbelievable at that time in Tennessee, we saw 9 coon one night with that pair of dogs. We had a terrific hunt. And the only thing he talked about all night long, I didn't even know much about him, man. He says he's going to the World Hunt. The ACHA World Hunt was in Illinois that year. And him and about 5 or 6 other hunters in the area went to. And he went there and he placed 5th or 6th with his black and tan that year, which I was glad for. He was a nice guy, and his dog was a top dog far as I was concerned. And,
we've talked about that before on this podcast, but that ACHA World Hunt in October was the hunt of the year for coon hunters, and the winner always appeared, I think it was either the November or December issue of American Cooner magazine would have the picture of the World Hunt, the ACHA World Hunt winner, and inside would have the scores for each night, and all written out in hand writing. I don't know if Harold Sisson or Clovis Stanfill was the one that did that, or whether they had one of the ladies to do it. But that was the hunt of the year.
Definitely. When you went to the ACHA the first, say, 15 years, it was like being in Hollywood. It was so different from any other hunt that you could go to at that time. And to place in it would be something, even if you was 20th place. It was still quite a feat at that time. And like I say, it's a shame it's gone by the other way nowadays, but you had to go there one time to realize how big a hunt it was. And I started going to them, I believe, about 1980. Fortunately, I never won it. I got a third, a fifth, a ninth, a 10th, and in the ACHA. That's the best I could ever do. But like I say, I was glad to even place in that.
Well,
and,
it was quite a rush for me, being somewhat of a historian on coon dogs. I've always been intrigued by them, and from my earliest days. And you've got me by 10 years, Fred. But excuse me. I'll be 70. I am 78 years old.
And, you're still a kid.
Oh, yeah. Spry as a cricket, as my grandpa used to say. No, but it was such a rush for me when I went to the AKC to work there and actually headed the Coonhound department for AKC. And AKC had bought out the ACHA registry and all the records that they had. And to go into a warehouse in Raleigh, North Carolina, or maybe it was in Durham, I don't remember exactly where a warehouse was, but go in there in these 80-some boxes, particularly made for files, sat in that warehouse containing all the registration records for the ACHA, the American Coon Hunters Association. And to take the lids off those boxes and read the names of those dogs, many of them ACHA world champions, you know, and that was really a trip for me. And you could see their pedigree information and all that. And the coon hunter, that was kind of like the Holy Grail, you know, the Dead Sea Scrolls, you know, for that. That was just one of the highlights of my life as far as coon hunting.
When you went to one of them hunts for the first time, you got to meet all the guys you read about.
Yeah.
And Merchant and all of them, you know, they were king of the hill at that time.
Oh, yeah. Merchant, Joe House. Oh, yeah. All those guys.
But, like I say, I've hunted with Baldy probably 5 times, mostly after Red Dolan bought him. But and he was a winner. There's no question about that. I drew Joe House in the ACHA hunt in 82, the year I placed. And he didn't have, he had a dog that I never heard of before. He was a good dog. In fact, the first night I drew Bertoni, Joe House, and the other guy was from Texas. I don't remember his name. But we had a good hunt. And a guy, before we went out, a guy went past us. He said, "Moran, you in this cast?" Meaning with Joe House and Berto. I said, "Yep." He said, "I feel like withdrawing my dog and just go along as a spectator on that." We just laughed. But it was fortunate for me. I did okay. And but it was something. It was I was in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and what I was worried about more than anything, never had a dog around an armadillo, but he ignored them, and like they were just part of the landscape. So everything
well,
worked
you know,
out fine.
Pine Bluff was kind of like a special place because the ACHA World Hunt had been held there, I think, several times. And when I went to work at AKC full time in '83, you know, I went to the Blue Tick Fall Roundup in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And to me, that was kind of like going to a very special place in coon hunting.
I don't know. I don't know if it happened when you were down there for the blue tick hunt, but we had police escorts to every place we went as far as a night hunt or where we was going to be on a cast. We'd have a police escort, and I remember the mayor giving a speech. He said, I don't condone speeding and so forth in my town or anything like that. He says, but if any guys go a little astray and get a ticket, you come to my office and see me. The crowd went crazy when he said that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that Burt McAfee was a game official there and a coon hunter.
Right,
and I'd say he had a lot to do with organizing a lot of that stuff.
Well, it was one of the better organized hunts that I ever been to.
Yeah.
Not because I got lucky, but it just was that kind.
Well, I met so many legends of the blue tick breed the first time I went there to Pine Bluff. Dwayne Flowers, I remember Dwayne. I remember Warren Haslauer. I remember T.E. Neely. I remember T.C. Jones. I remember, you'll
never forget him if you met T.C. Jones.
No,
he was a character. He came to my house in Pennsylvania. I've been to his house probably 10, 20 times, but he'd been to my house 2 or 3 times. My wife made him lemon blend, and he never had tasted that before. And he called his wife. He said, we got to find this. He said, I never tasted something that good. He said, he couldn't remember what it was, and I had to holler to him over the phone. I said, it's lemon blend. And
that's some kind of a pie or dessert, I assume, huh?
It was like a lemonade only.
Okay. It was a drink then, no?
Yeah, it's a drink. And it suits your palate, that's for sure.
I got you. Kind of like a sun drop down in North Carolina, I guess. Well, you know, I also met Albert Vaughn there, and I also met the Uchman family, and Lonnie Smiley, and so many of those Carl Cassie. Did you ever meet Carl? Blue Tick man.
Yeah, he was a sheriff, I believe, in Oklahoma.
Yeah, a big guy, tall guy. He filled up a room when he was there. That big booming voice and a big laugh and all. Yeah, those guys. Jim Boland, who was the president many years of the BBCHA. Well, I'm chasing rabbits down that old memory lane, Fred. But there was so many good times, brother. So many. Well,
This is a little bit off key from coon hunting, but I'm going to tell you this anyhow because a couple of guys told me they got a kick out of listening to what I told a story about something.
Let's hear it, man.
There's a guy, he used to work for me when he got out of Vietnam. His name's Gary Hoffman, and he's in the animal control business to this day. I had 50 years in it, and he's going to beat me. He's probably got 55 in it right now, and he's still doing it. And he's 75 years old. He takes care, he got contracts with over 100 municipalities. I didn't have that many. I had 87 was my best, but he has over 100. And that's dog control of all these towns surrounding Pittsburgh and everywhere else. But anyhow, Gary was telling me a story. He was a coon hunter. He big time coon hunter, and the best dog handler I ever seen, far as I'm concerned. He can make a dog do tricks and everything else. He ain't into coon hunting anymore. He's coyote dogs. He's crazy over coyote dogs, and he's got bird dogs. But he hunts quite a bit. But anyhow, he was telling a judge this one day. He was in there for a hearing with somebody he fined for their dog run loose or something like that. And the judge was telling me the story, and then I finally got Gary to repeat the story to me. A guy called him up, and the guy lived in Oakmont, Pennsylvania, which is only about 10 miles from Pittsburgh. And he wanted to get rid of his pet monkey. And we occasionally get what I call goofy calls like that. I had calls never on a monkey. I had a call on a lion, and I refused to. Well, that's a different story. But anyhow, getting back to Gary, the guy called him up and he says, I want to get rid of my monkey. I can't keep him anymore. My wife's raising heck with me. How much would you charge to take it? And Gary to give him a fee and so forth. And he went there to the man's household to pick the monkey up. Well, the monkey answers the door. When Gary knocks on the door, the monkey opens the inner door, and Gary looks at him. He says, "Oh, man." And then the guy comes to the door, and the monkey's got on bimbo overalls. And so the guy invites Gary in the house, and he says, listen, I got some stuff to go with this monkey. He give him a little vest, a jacket. He says, oh, you put his shoes on. He don't like to go outside without shoes on. Gary's thinking, what did I get into? And so he takes him out to the truck, and Gary's got a regular dog control truck, the kind you see in movies with the compartments on each side. There's 6 holders, usually they're white fiberglass. And the guy says, you ain't going to put him in there, are you? Gary says, yeah. He said, no, he likes to ride. Put him in the front seat with you. He'll be all right. And he says, just call him Gus. He'll be okay. And so Gary didn't want to do that because he didn't know how the monkey's going to react or anything. But so far, the guy says, take him by his hand and lead him right out to the truck. He'll walk right with you just like a kid. So Gary leads him out, puts him in the front seat. The monkey's up there. He got like them big coveralls on. He got a little jacket on. And he got a cap on, Gary told me. They're headed back to the kennel, which is a good 25 mile away. And Gary is hoping that he don't have no problem with this monkey. Going down the highway, the monkey gets a little rambunctious, and he starts hitting Gary with his fists in the shoulder and so forth. The next thing he knows, the monkey's crawled behind him and between the cab and Gary's neck, and he squeezed it. Gary thought he's going to wreck. He pulls over, and a mailman's going up the street, and the mailman's looking at him, and Gary puts the window down, and he says, call the police and tell them the dog control needs him. And he shouted a house number there where he's parked in front of it. And the mailman's laughing so hard, Gary told me. He wasn't about to call anybody. He's just sitting there on the curb laughing like heck. This monkey pounded Gary on the head and so forth.
I thought he was going to say, get this monkey off my back.
No, he didn't say that. He said the mailman never helped him a bit. He said but he finally got the monkey under control and it sat back down. He drove down the street a little bit further, and he got a red light there. And the guy just come out of a bar, and he seen that monkey with Gary, and he waved to Gary, and Gary pulled over to the curb. He didn't know what the guy was. He says, "Oh man, that monkey." He said, "What are you going to do with it?" Well, Gary hadn't made up his mind what he was going to do yet. Whether he's going to try and place it or euthanize it or what. Then the guy was half tuned in, and coming out of that barn, and the guy says, "Give me that monkey." Gary got him to sign a release form. And the guy took the monkey, and Gary said when he pulled out of there, he couldn't get out of there fast. He said that guy was holding the monkey's hand walking back into the barn. I thought that was so comical.
Oh, man. Not my circus, not my monkey, said Gary.
But that was really something.
Oh, man.
We gone through some big doings, me and him, on crazy calls like that. I had a humane agent call me one time, wanted to know if I'd take a lion. A guy, he went bankrupt, and he left his place of business, and he had mostly small animals in there like hamsters and that. He had lizards and stuff like that, but he did have a lion in a big cage. The lion was skinny as heck when we went in there. And this guy nobody had seen him for almost a week. The humane agent went down to a supermarket and gave him a sob story that the lion ain't nothing. They give him 7 frozen chickens. He took them back to where I was waiting on him in this building where this guy had his place of business. That lion ate them 7 chickens as fast as you could throw them over the cage wire. I never seen nothing like that.
Ate them frozen, bones and all, right?
Bones and all. He finally got on. I said to Ed, I said, I have no facilities to keep a lion. I said, if he gets away from me and kills somebody or something like that, and the lion wasn't tame. He might have been semi, but he wasn't tame. But we finally got the Pittsburgh Zoo to come up and get him and take him. But I had all kind of war stories.
Lions
like
and
that.
tigers and monkeys. Oh, my.
But anyhow, getting back to the cooners, like I say, the hunts, naturally, well, they're going downhill up here anyhow. They're getting terrible entries as far as the mountain music hunt used to be the biggest hunt in Pennsylvania. It ain't. The first year we put it on, we had 104 dogs. That's a lot for Pennsylvania.
That's a lot of dogs at any night hunt
but
down
it
through
ain't
history.
like that now. I think this year they had 26 dogs.
Oh, yeah.
It's a darn shame. But
it is.
It just... People are losing interest. I don't know what it is, but they're losing interest.
Now, Eddie Ross started the mountain music hunt. Now, was Eddie from Pennsylvania or from Ohio?
He was originally from Louisiana, and he moved to Ohio.
I got you. And he, of course, hosted or was responsible for producing, promoting that Kenton National for so many years there in Kenton, Ohio.
That was a money maker there. Do you know, I'll bet you didn't know this and you've been around. I read in the Sports Illustrated that the Kenton National was listed in the top 10 events of all events.
Spectator
like football,
events.
basketball, spectator sports in the world.
Top 10 in the world.
Right.
Wow. Well, that is strange, Fred, and I've told this story before. Kenton didn't have a very good reputation when I was a kid coming up. And a lot of the local coon hunters would go to Kenton every fall and come back with all these stories. And they'd go and stay at least a week. And these guys would round up everything they could find with an ear on it
I know what you mean.
to trade. you
Yep.
know. And I particularly remember the Adkins brothers, Lacey and Virgil, there would always go to Kenton, and they were dog traders. Well, they'd trade anything. Trading was a big thing in my area when I was a kid growing up. People, they had these, well, you'd call them swap meets or whatever, but it was at the farmer's market. And I think it was Monday that you could go there. And of course, we were in coal mining country, so a lot of these wheat light 4-volt, lead acid battery lights would somehow find their ways out of the coal mines and onto the tables for these. You could go by and you could buy a wheat light and a charger for $25. When they cost probably $50-some for a new one plus the charger. But, the first one I ever had, it still had that old black coal dust down in the grooves and in the creases on it, and all you could tell it came out of the mines. But they would swap for anything, but they'd gather up all those dogs and take them to Kenton and trade dogs all week. And then, drawing a little bit of boot, each trade. You got to get a little bit, $5 maybe, $10 maybe, $2 or $3 maybe.
Got to get some boot.
That's right. But my folks wouldn't let me go because they heard all the stories about what that place turned into after dark.
It was something different. I went out there one year when I wasn't doing nothing and found 3 or 4 farms where I could try dogs at, all within 10 mile of Kenton. I found some good farms and nobody refused me. They all let me hunt there.
Yeah.
And the one year I took a black fella from another neighboring town from where I lived. His name was Ralph Johnson. He was a character. He wasn't no wise guy, but the answers he gave for everything was comical as could be. But I took him out there and two other boys from back home, and we went hunting one night. And at that time, it was drought. There was no rain for a long time, and we were hunting along a creek, and there was big carp in that creek, and they were going to die because the water was getting so low. We caught a couple with our hands, and I remember the one guy pulled a fast one on Ralph and put a dead carp in his sleeping bag.
Oh, no.
And when Ralph came, Ralph was watching the water races up there. And when he came back and crawled in that sleeping bag, he went looking for that kid that I brought out there with me. That kid knew that Ralph would be hunting for him. And he stayed away from the camp for a whole day.
I bet he did.
And when Ralph said, I've been looking for you, he says, I had a girlfriend, he said, I met. And that's what he told Ralph. He said he didn't put that carp there, but he put that carp in that sleeping bag.
Well, I've never been really much of a practical joker. But some guys, like the one I'm speaking to right now, really was into practical jokes. And I know I heard some of the stuff that you guys pulled on Larry Packey over the years.
That was only the beginning. Fred Luber came to my house, him and his wife. I've been to his house several times. He finally came to my place, and we took him fishing at a place you ain't allowed to fish, but every time the line hits the water, you got to fish. And there's over 5,000 acres, and this water surrounds it. And he says, I can't fish here. He says, all these posters and that. He says, somebody's going to get us. I said, it's only a $25 fine if you get caught. He said, I don't want to get caught. He says, I had a good reputation till I came here hunting with you and Packy. Me, him, and Packy were fishing there, and Fred he hated to even pick a rod up. They were all my rods. He says, if I have to run, I'm going to leave your rod. I said, I don't care. But I took him back to the same place that night. We went there Coonhound. He says, here we go again. I said, same thing. You can't fish where you go. You can't hunt where you go. And we didn't have that good a hunting. That's full of coon, too. But I got a good buddy that has property enjoying it now. And he's got dogs, red dogs, and he's got it made. They don't bother him because of him living so close to that, and they let him coon out there. So he's the only one that got permission that I know of.
We had a fellow back home that used to say that he'd take a cast out for him a night hunt, and there'd be posted signs everywhere. And he'd say, this will be a good vicinity. He didn't say it with a V, vicinity. He called it F.
Yeah.
Vicinity, because nobody else will be hunting here, he said.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I had a lot of them places. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about coon hunting. The dogs are going to take you in places that'll potentially get you in trouble.
When the farmer comes up to me, I says, dogs don't read signs. They don't know where that coon goes. They're trained to follow it. Oh, speaking of that Ralph that I was speaking about had the carp in his sleep bag. I took him deer hunting at that place where I took Fred Lubert coon hunt. And adjoining property on there belonged to an old Italian man. And it was a warm day. It warmed up, and Ralph says, where are you going? I said, up over the hill there. He says, I'm going to stay right here. He says, I'm going to try and sleep a little bit. It probably got up to 60 degrees that day. And he leaned against a tree, or he sat down and put his back up against a tree with a poster on. It says, no trespassing, no hunting. And that old Italian man happened to come up the road. And Ralph was sound asleep. And the old Italian man kicked him in the boot, not hard, just to wake him up. Kicked him in the boot. And Ralph, he picked his head up. He said, yeah. And the old Italian man says, hey, see sign? Ralph said, and he ain't being smart. This is the way Ralph is. Ralph says, yeah, I see sign. What sign say? Ralph says, I've been here for 2 hours. It ain't said nothing to me. I said, what did the Italian guy do? He said he walked away.
Oh, what a great answer.
He was a character.
Oh, boy. What would life be without the characters we've met along the way, Fred? That's amazing. Yeah.
He was funny as heck. He made us all. We was at a night hunt one time over in Ohio, and he had a dog in a great hunt, and dog a tree coon. And no question about that. He was half collie dog and half hound. And we're sitting there calling calves out, and the dog from he's standing with Ralph with a leash on, and takes a notion to jump in a garbage can. And he just, from a dead stop, just jumps right into. Everybody roared when they seen that. And Ralph said, well, he's used to them garbage cans back home. He goes through a lot of neighbors' cans.
He had an instant comeback for anything then, didn't he? He's one of those guys that always had the answer. Yeah.
He was a character.
Yeah, God rest his soul. Yeah, for sure. Did you go turkey hunting this year?
No, I don't turkey hunt. My kid does. And he took his kid, and they saw some turkeys, but they were too far. They didn't get close enough to call them in and so forth. So they didn't get nothing. But Mike's killed more than his share of turkeys, and he got one gobbler mounted because it got 3 beards. And Packy used to say, I asked him how much he paid to get him mounted, and he said I could go down to Giant Eagle, which is a large supermarket in our area. He said I could buy 3 butterballs for the price you paid for that. So
that sounds like a friend Packy for sure.
Turkeys. I used to rabbit hunt. I don't rabbit hunt anymore. If I got a good squirrel dog, I'll go squirrel hunting. But other than deer and coon, that's all I hunt.
Well, now, back in West Virginia, our squirrel season didn't come in until sometimes it would come in like the middle of September, but usually it was the middle of October. When does your squirrel season come in Pennsylvania?
It came in early, I think, the last 2 years. I believe in September, but usually October.
I see. Yeah. Well, that's what I always look forward to as a kid. Of course, I always loved to go coon hunting, too, when we could carry a gun, and take a coon. But I loved and lived for that squirrel season to open, and I lived by woods, across the highway, and I come home from school, get clothes changed as quick as I could and I always hunted with a shotgun when I was a kid. In fact, my dad didn't really trust me much with a rifle. He said, if you shoot that rifle, be sure you shoot it up in the air. You don't shoot it along the ground, shoot at squirrels on the ground with that rifle.
We don't have the small game that we once had. I mean, as far as rabbits, we used to have ringneck pheasants all over the place. I'd come home from school at 3:30 and I'd kill my limit rabbits and pheasants by dark, and no trouble at all. You won't do that anymore up here. And a pheasant is a thing of the past up here. You won't see no pheasant unless you hunt near one of the pheasant farms that the Game Commission has.
Right. When I went to Michigan in '83, I was I was on the tail end of the pheasants up there. That big blizzard of, what was that, 77, 78 or somewhere, we had the big blizzard that went across the northern Midwest up there. That killed out a lot of the pheasants. And then, of course, the DDT, they claim, was part of the problem because it would, the egg shells would be so thin that they would break when the hen would sit on the nest. And then also the farming practices when they started, planting from ditch line to ditch line. There was no cover left for them. But we did have a few pheasants when I first went up there, and my beagles would run them. I could hear them. This one little female.
I had dogs that run them.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, in fact, I remember it was our senior year, and me and my buddies went small game hunting, and we went about 35 miles in an area that we never hunted before to give it a try. And it was in Washington County, which is one of the better counties for coon hunting. And we run across quail down there. Never before did I ever see a quail in Pennsylvania. And I got 2 quail down there. That was the first quail I ever shot. I haven't shot many, but that was the first quail I ever shot. And I think we got 6 altogether between the 3 of us. And but you'll never see a quail nowadays.
The last time I went quail hunting, it was at the invitation of a coon hunter in Georgia, down at Twin Cities, Georgia, Jerry Webb. Do you know him?
No.
Okay, Jerry's a great guy, and he operates a plantation there for quail hunters. Has a big lodge and cabins and all this stuff. Beautiful spot. And we were trying. Terry Walker had asked me, he said, "Can you find a place down there somewhere?" Reggie Ramsey had started that CHKC, they called it, Coon Hunters Kennel Club. And he was looking for a location to put on a money hunt, a high dollar hunt. And so I had an invitation from this Jerry to come down sometime and hunt with him. He said, "You can stay here and we'll we'll quail hunt and we'll coon hunt, So I took him up on that, and that was a lot of fun. But these were pen-raised birds,
right.
And some of them fly real good and some of them not so good.
Well,
But it was still a great time because Jerry's just such a fantastic host,
I used to go down Jim Mathis's when he was living. My wife and I went down there and stayed 2 or 3 times, and he'd take me to a plantation. It was all the difference in the world going anywhere else.
Oh,
you hunt on a plantation, you seen coons. You hunt on your own, you didn't see coons.
Yeah.
And one time, a guy took me, I forget his name, but he took me to a deer camp. And this was at the Grand American.
Mm-hmm.
And he took me to a deer camp. And I said to him, we're going down a road, and it's a pretty decent road. Back, this deer camp's supposed to be at the end of the road. I says, what's all these reflectors on these trees for? There's reflectors, every other tree. He says, we get rain so bad here. If we have to come into deer camp on boats, this is how we find our way in, by watching the reflectors. I couldn't get over that. And they took 4 calves to that deer camp. I said, this is going to be a picnic. We're going to be running into other calf members all night long. One's going north, one's going south. But by darn, we didn't run into anybody. We didn't hear their dogs. They didn't hear our dogs. And we had a good hunt. We seen some coon there. I couldn't get over that. Are you still on?
Yeah, I am, and I'm getting some kind of a call in. Hello? Can you hear me, Fred?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm getting some kind of call in here. I don't know what's going on. No, I'm good. Do you need to go?
No.
Okay, let me... it's just a message coming in on my phone. This technology sometimes aggravates me. No, but yeah, I recently, back in cooler weather, I went up and hunted with a young man, Mike Reeves, up at Steinhatchee, Florida, and I think that lease that they had up there was something like 50,000 acres or 90,000 acres or some crazy number like that. All across the South, there's just these huge expanses of land, and a lot of them are owned by timber companies, and they lease it to the hunters, But even at that, I won't get on my soapbox, but it's so frustrating because those guys get those leases for deer hunting, and they somehow think that these coonhounds are going to bother the deer hunt.
I hear it all the time. We got this property lease. You're chasing all them deer off of here. I said, them deer make a circle and come back and lay right back down where you jump.
Well, the thing that frustrates me so much about Florida is that they'll run deer dogs on these leases, and then somehow they think, though, if you're in there at night, it's going to disturb the deer, and they're out there running them all day long. So it just makes no sense. If we could just get all the hunters to work together, it would be a beautiful thing. But hunters are very single-minded. What they like to do is the only thing, and what you like to do is not important. And as long as we have that outlook on things, we're going to be in trouble, down the road. That's for sure. Well, listen, what about your coon hunting here lately? Have you gotten to go any?
Oh, yeah. I went 3 times last week. It ain't like it used to be, but I've been back and forth at doctors all the time. I was in the hospital yesterday. They fed me in through the vein iron supplement. They say I'm low on iron. I have to do that two more times. So I don't know. It don't make me feel any different. It's not better or worse, but they claim it's going to help.
Well, Fred, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I think our listeners need to know your family went through a tremendous tragedy.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
And
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
The kid, he was at my place a week before. We had a party for somebody, and naturally he was there. He was the life of the party, and he would have been a character. He had his dad told a story at the funeral. His dad told a story there. There was over 400 people at his funeral.
Now, this child was how old, Fred?
He would have been 4 in another couple months.
I got you.
And I didn't know this myself, but he had a passion for bugs. And his dad's name is Dave. Dave used to Coonhound with me, and he had his own dog. But anyhow, the boy, his name was Wyatt, and he caught a stink bug, and he brought it in the house, and he shown it to his dad. And his dad says, "Get rid of that thing. Go put it outside and step on it." And he said, "No, you're not going to get rid of it. I'm going to keep it. He's going to be my pet." He said, "I already named him." My grandson asked him, he said, "What's his name?" He said, "I call it Larry." He named the stink bug Larry. So he had the dog. He has his own room, but he has a habit. Before the night's over, he crawls in his dad's bed with him.
Yeah.
And, he brought Larry he had Larry in a jar with holes in the lid now. Mm-hmm. He brought Larry in the bed with his dad. And his dad says, "I hope you ain't got Larry here." He says, "Yeah, I got Larry here." And he opened the lid, and the stink bug let loose. He said, "Boy, was that a party." He said, "That stink bug in the bed, and it lets loose."
Oh, my. Well, and it was
I didn't know he was into bugs. But
yeah. And he, unfortunately, was killed in a lawnmower accident, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when you lose a child, Fred, it's just so hard. It really is. Yeah.
Well, he was a character, very smart kid too. Everybody's got the smartest kid in the world, but for his age, he was sharp.
He was a sharp one, huh? Well, the good Lord had plans for him, so
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I'm sure.
I hope he ain't got no stink bugs up there.
That's right. That's a great story, Fred. Well, we were all very much all across the Coonhound community thinking of you and your family during that time, but things happen we don't understand. There's no way we will ever understand why they do.
I couldn't believe it when they called me. I thought I was hearing things.
Yeah.
When they called me, and I ran right over there, and just by chance, my priest don't live far from there, so I went over to his house to get him. Because I wanted him to smooth things over a little bit better than a person would. And fortunately, I caught him. He just coming back from eating dinner. And I took him over there. It don't sound like much, but it helped a good bit, believe me.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it did, for sure. Well, have you been with your friend Patty, and you call her the other one, the blonde bomber?
Listen to this. I haven't hung with Patty in a good while, but Blondie, her right name is Carrie. Blondie, she's been out with me most of the times I go. She got lost in the same woods that I've had her in at least 10 times. She's been lost in that woods twice. And anyhow, the last time, she sat down on a log, and she calls me on the phone. And she says, "I can't use the language on this podcast that she says, "Get me out of this place." I said, "Listen to the horn. I'll blow the horn." Because the dog was treed up there, and she got the dog. and she's holding the dog on a leash, and she's sitting on a log crying and cussing. Both things. And finally, I blowed the horn enough time she could hear it. She finally worked her way out. She got within 60 yards of me. I didn't want to give her the garment. She knows how to read it. She's learned how, but I figured she'll lose it sure as heck. So I didn't bother giving her garment. I told her when I finally got her to the truck, I says, "Was you ever in the Girl Scouts?" She says, "Yep." I said, "Did you ever learn to read a compass?" She said, "No." I said, "That's what you should get, a compass, and learn how to read it."
Right.
I says, "Tell me something. How long did you last in the Girl Scouts?" She said, "I got kicked out." I said, "What for?" She said, "Cussing." I said, I could see that.
That's
She's a
funny.
character, I'll tell you.
I guess. Well, Fred, we've had a good visit here. You got any parting thoughts or wisdom or stories?
We got the youth hunt next weekend, and our youth hunt used to be the second biggest in the country. Of all, the only state ever beat us was North Carolina. They'd get around 60 dogs. We'd have around 55. But it's been dropping bad. I can't wait to see. I hope we have a good turnout. In our club, the Laurel Highland Coonhunters, we give more away than any club. Everybody that comes is guaranteed a free entry on anything they enter, bench show, night hunt, or whatever, tree and content. Plus, they get a coupon. They go in the dog supply guy's trailer and get anything they want for $50.
Wow.
A light, clothes, whatever. They get it for nothing. So.
It's been a great visit with Fred today, and lots of news stories there, and it's always fun to call him, and I know that I do fairly often, but man, he's just a regular on this program, and we're so thankful for him and the fact that he's still able to enjoy this sport at 88 years old. So we'll get Fred back on very soon. I hope you all have a great summer with your hounds and with your families, and that everything turns out to be just a great summer for you. This is Steve Fielder, Gone to the Dogs podcast. We'll see you again next week. If anyone asks you where is Steve these days, just tell him he's gone to the dogs.